Welcome to this week's episode of What's at Stake. We're your hosts, Bryan DeAngelis, a partner here at Penta, joined by Kevin.
And I'm Kevin Madden, a senior partner at Penta.
And Kevin, this is one of your specialties, I'm going to say, but we're going to do the Penta Goes Pop again on this week's episode. We're going to look at the music economy, now financially dominated by touring, that we just kind of got inspired over the NFT article week or so ago about the Oasis and Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. These are big tours that are starting to have a big impact on the economy and lots of other things. So I thought this would be a fun one to dive into and discuss some more. One of the things in the FT article that jumped out at me, both as maybe a fan of music and studying the economy here at Penta a lot, I think it was called the Bowie effect. David Bowie predicted over 20 years ago that touring would become the most important part of an artist's, revenue, way more than album sales. And 20 years ago was before we had Spotify and anything else. But we have seen in the last couple of years, just whether it's a huge current day pop star like Taylor Swift, or I don't know, we're going to date ourselves, but a legacy 90s star like Oasis, huge demand and, attention, and just they do a lot for the music economy, and they make I think a ton of money off this.
It's interesting too that it was the Bowie effect, because if there's one thing that we all sort of remember, and like I was a fan of Bowie in the late Bowie stage, not the earlier stage, but like the early stage Bowie was the most technologically advanced artist, right? He was the one who was much better at thinking up concept albums and then marketing an entire persona, and then all of the money opportunities or financial opportunities that came with marketing that persona, like Ziggy Stardust,
right.
Or like you can imagine what it was like trying to get like Ziggy Stardust merchandise back in the day, right? And also just the technological advances here, that you would have thought it would have been less about touring and it would have been much more about the digital experience, the technology that was going to be able to create new audiences with new sounds and new artists who might have been sort of kind of kept away or never really had a chance to break out because of record company politics back then, right? And radio station politics. And instead, that the platform democratization would have been what Bowie was predicting. So it was very interesting to see that his prescience actually had to do with coming back to the roots.
Yeah, and it is a good point thinking about the history of it. I mean, I was raised on the Beatles, early career was just album after album, but a lot of touring, right? Beatlemania, fans kind of going nuts, passing out. And then where their career got really interesting, at least to me, musically, was when they just gave up touring and they got into the studio and they started experimenting, like Sgt. Pepper's and Abbey Road. And you see that, to your point, Bowie, then Queen, then Pink Floyd, these big concept type things. And then probably sometime in the 80s, we got back to like arena rock and those big shows. And now we're, in this Spotify streaming era where it seems like the shows are the big driver again.
And you think about it too, the Beatles were so influential on so many other artists. Like when I read that, did you read that book that I recommended to you, Graham Nash's biography?
I'm halfway through. I made it.
So one of the scenes in there where, you have David Crosby like bringing Sgt. Pepper, Lonely Hearts Club Band, like the actual like debut record, and probably copious amounts of marijuana into the Laurel Canyon house for everybody to hear it. And then just everybody sitting there mesmerized and then thinking like this is the next frontier to push on, right? The Beatles have now set the standard for everybody else. And then how much it became about recording, and then how much it came about, pushing these concept albums or creating everybody wanted to create that album. And it moved away a little bit. And that was at a time where performances were more geared towards festivals.
Yes.
And the festivals like, Woodstock and Altamont and all these other ones that sort of kind of came out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. You see it in that book. It's CSNY with the Stones and everybody, it was these big things. And we're in a totally different spot. I mean, we'll get into Taylor Swift and Oasis, but even now I feel like everybody's going to Vegas to see the Dead on the ball there, and the residencies. It's like this is where the driver is now.
I'm genuinely surprised in the sense that I really thought with there are so many more artists that I listen to now because of Spotify, right? Because of the algorithm that says, okay, well, if you like Pacifica, you're gonna love Heinz, right? Which is these two very small bands. I'm actually probably, putting people on to two new bands that they probably never heard of. Yep. And it's the same thing too. Okay, well, if you're listening to Boy Genius, okay, you're gonna like Haim, right?
Yeah.
Now these. So I would have expected that people would have been starting to listen to more on Spotify and discovering a whole bunch of new artists, and as a result, that would open up financial opportunities and artist opportunities because of that. And instead, I think what we have to really look at is the post-COVID pent up demand for just the live experience, the live performance. And I think that I remember during lockdown, I said that man, I can't wait to go to my first concert. Yeah. And think about how many the Gigaton tour was basically canceled, right? And how many tours were canceled and how many artists had their lives disrupted because they didn't have this ability to go and tour. And then the emphasis on the experience and the emphasis on artists going out there and reconnecting with their fans it's carried over all the way through right here to 2024. So it's been a good solid 4 years. And I think that's a lot of what's driving it. I know it's what's driving me. And then I think you look at the experience of the Eras tour and how people recognize they don't even have to go to the actual concert to have an experience, right? The secondary market of the Taylor Swift experience, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's a big part of it too.
Yeah. So you're familiar with this, but I went on a little concert bender about a week or so
Which,
ago.
by the way, I had a big part.
You started.
Well, actually, I should say our friend Mark Postenbach had.
Yeah, but it started with Pearl Jam. I went to Springsteen the next day, but that Sunday, to your point, I went down on the wharf to a Taylor Swift sing-along with my 7-year-old.
Really?
And it was just,
So
$30
big
ticket,
music weekend.
not a $3,000.
Can I ask you do you now have tinnitus after that weekend?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely,
Now I had earplugs.
I'm wearing the earplugs
for our listeners. I had the earplugs in the entire time during the Pearl Jam concert.
I tried to be a tough guy, but
and I took it out for maybe 5 seconds just to see what is the rest of this audience experiencing. And wow, that was very, very loud.
Yes.
And I don't know how your head wasn't ringing the next day.
Yeah, it still is. Yeah. But yeah.
So, I'd love to talk a little bit about the Pearl Jam experience because I know you and I are both fans, but I didn't get tickets to Pearl Jam. I tried. Right. I couldn't get tickets. I was at part of the queue and I was somewhat insulted by that, but I didn't hold it against the band. But that just goes to demonstrate the level of demand out there,
And not even demand, but the hoops you have to go through now, some of which I think is really good for artists from a financial and economic standpoint, becoming I'm a member of the 10 Club, can do the verified fan thing for Pearl Jam earlier than, if you just wake up and decide you want to go to Pearl Jam and you get a head start on those tickets. It doesn't really matter when it comes to pricing because there's so much demand. But you saw Taylor Swift do that. Obviously we're all familiar with the controversy around her first set of tickets, but even Oasis now, I don't think they did the verified fan thing. I think, and you saw a lot of complaints of the 20-year-old that knows Wonderwall beating out the guy that
I saw that quote.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of felt a little bit of Pearl Jam. Oh, great. Somebody who's just a new Pearl Jam fan. Because my sons are Pearl Jam fans. I think that's the osmosis of my playlists in the car. They now know all the songs and they would love to see them. But I think that's one of the things too, where it's somebody out there who I've been waiting 20 years now to see Pearl Jam, and I can't believe how dare somebody else who's a brand new fan get to
jump in.
Now I have that for 2 seconds, and I never hold it against the band. But here's another thing. I think the social media experience for a lot of audiences is a big part of the FOMO. I think when you see on your Instagram feed or your Facebook or Twitter, people that are at a concert experiencing the live event, it's coming to your neighborhood next, and you see how good the show is, there is a greater interest in being a part of that. You know why? Because you want to fill your feed, your social media feed with, Eddie Vedder singing Alive.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. I got Baltimore Springsteen tickets, and I was dying watching my Instagram feed the week before of everyone who got Nationals DC tickets. And I was like, I'll be there in a week, but
I think it makes people
left out.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to tag the location. They want to. And I think they also just appreciate the live experience being shared by everybody else as a result. And so it's less about, back then I think the maybe the first version of social media technically was sharing mixtapes. Right?
Probably,
you make a mixtape, you send it to somebody who's like, hey, you got it. Like I had this in college. They're like, I had a
trading bootlegs.
I had a John Cougar Mellencamp. That's why I call that's how old I am. I call him John Cougar Mellencamp now. He still goes by John Mellencamp, but I had a John Cougar Mellencamp mixtape that like made its way around campus. They're like, you gotta get a copy of Madden's John Cougar Mellencamp mixtape. It's great. You gotta get it.
Yeah, we'll have to bring that into Penta for the 9:30 stop at some point. Yeah. Going back to the effect of Spotify, though, I'm doing this at least, and I'm guessing you are too, both for those big acts and small acts. So just like you, without Spotify, I would never listen to J.J. Wild and some other bands that I've started listening to. But I find myself going to way more 9:30 concerts, Anthem, like smaller venues where these artists are coming through, where if I had heard them on the radio 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been following them on social media and trying to buy tickets. So it's the touring part of it's helping both that big star like Taylor Swift as well as the kind of up and comers.
Yeah, and I think it's given a lot of artists, particularly the up and comers, a opportunity for a full scale marketing push. Because think about it, when you listen to the song or you pull up one of these like obscure artists on Spotify, you find out immediately where they're playing near you because they've got a GPS locator on you and they know that that they're playing at the Anthem soon, right? I get it all the time for Waxahachie. I know is playing the Merriweather Pavilion. How do I know that off the top of my head? Because it keeps prompting me on Spotify. But so not only can I find out when they're playing, and I can just with the ease of a click, buy the tickets, show up there to see them. But I can also get the merchandise. Like there's options then to reach out to the merchandise department and purchase. This happened when I was at the Ryan Adams up at the Birchmere. Or what's the one? Yeah, what's the one up in Bethesda? Is that the Birchmere?
No. Birchmere's down near me in
that's
Arlington.
I'm forgetting the name of it, but. It was all very easy, and the merchandise is, you don't
have to lug around the poster all day.
No, you can just buy it right there on your phone. And I think that is one of the things that, if you ever go back, and one of the great documentaries was about the band Big Star. Now, Big Star was every band's favorite band back in the 70s when they were first coming out. Alex Chilton and the members of Big Star were very influential for a lot of the 70s groups. Big Star, because their record company was no good at marketing and they were no good at promoting their tours and they were no good at getting them radio play, nobody ever heard of Big Star. And the documentary goes through this, and it's like now there's a lot of bands that have had really good, strong opportunities to tour and promote shows and promote their music and find new fans just because of the ready availability of this marketing chain that's at their fingertips versus having to wait for their record company to do it.
Yeah. The FOMO piece too, I feel like is all COVID related. Like we did miss this, and going back to the economics of it, I was talking to some folks in the retail industry over the past couple of days. So much money spent on goods when we were locked in our house, but we missed this stuff where now I feel like we're getting our full, whether it's vacations, and what you're actually seeing is I know a ton of families that did vacations for Taylor Swift this summer. We're taking the kids to Berlin.
My sister, she went to
we're
Dublin and then
anchoring it
Munich.
around the concert. You think that continues, or you think that's a burnout for?
I think it does, but I will tell you, I see what my sister does with her daughters for Taylor Swift, but then I can only really attest to this through the lens of my own experience, which is I am willing to put up with a lot more friction to go to these shows now than I used to be. And I probably in this last 4 years probably saw more in those 4 years than I did in the previous 10 because I just don't think I ever want to give up that experience again of a live show. And how many of these are, I think it has to do with a lot of the fact that a lot of my favorite artists are getting old.
I was just going to say, how much of this is driven by nostalgia?
I think that's a big part of it, but it's the secondary economy that it then creates for these other bands because the National had Soccer Mommy open up for them.
Yeah.
And like nobody, I think a lot of people there were like, who's opening for her? And I was like, Soccer Mommy. Like, I haven't heard of her. And it's like, well, now you have, and now you're going to get a really good band. Same thing for the lab, and by the way, like for anybody who hasn't been to a National concert, like it's guys that look like me and Bryan, like 50 plus years old, like got the Allbirds on, the Peter Millar. Like,
for the
it's
record,
a lot of
not
sad,
50 yet.
A lot of, all right, well, a lot of sad suburban dads. And then there's like this younger female artist, Soccer Mommy, and like, I think a lot of people are now, she turned a lot of fans. And so I think there'll be a secondary market effect, I think, for her and her music and her fans. So like, yeah, we're going to see the old guys that we always sort of knew and loved. But then we're getting into these new bands that are younger and are really bringing great new sounds to the market and creating opportunities for them.
Yeah. There is something too. I mean, I am a sad old dad in the suburbs, but with the exception of Taylor Swift, you are seeing this with slightly older bands. Yeah. It's our generation that whether it's coming into money or has that extra, cash to go do a trip and see a band. I mean, same with you. I used to see Pearl Jam when they came to Boston. Now I'm going to Louisville. I'm going to Jersey to see concerts. I'm willing to make a weekend out of it, travel. And it's partly those bands I grew up with. Like Jane's Addiction maybe doesn't happen.
We may not see Jane's Addiction again.
You saw
I was joking about this, by the way, the fact that I saw Pearl Jam and play, and then in the very same weekend, Jane's Addiction technically broke up. I said, "What year is it? It feels like it 1993?
Yeah,
like Jane's Addiction's breaking up and Pearl Jam's playing concerts." Like, but here's the other thing too: is when was your first concert? How old were you when you went to your first big concert?
Probably 14.
14. Okay, that's a pretty good young age.
Yeah.
I was 7. I think I was 18, and I was like the summer right before I went away to college, and I went to see Don Henley at New Jersey Meadowlands, the old Brendan Byrne Arena.
Yeah.
And I swear that's where I got my first taste of tinnitus.
Sure.
I couldn't hear for 2 weeks coming out of that thing because I sat right next to the speakers. But I didn't have the experience where it was like my parents brought me. I think that's largely because my parents didn't listen to the same music that I did. But I listened to the same music as my sons do. And I would have loved to have brought my one son, Colin, to Pearl Jam, but somebody took the other ticket.
Yeah, that was me.
But I think here I'll get to my main point here is that I think this is a lot more of a generational shared experience now, where folks our age are going to be willing, like my sister, to go to a Taylor Swift concert with their daughters. I don't necessarily know if that was a kind of an anomaly back in previous generations, right? I don't think there were many people bringing their kids to Woodstock. There were people that had kids that apparently gave birth at Woodstock, but not bringing their kids to Woodstock, not bringing their kids to see The Who in Madison Square Garden in 1973, right? But now I think because of the experiences, I think these venues are much more professional. They're much more safe. It's much safer. It's easier. There's easier to buy the tickets in bulk and things like that. You're not roaming around outside Brendan Byrne Arena trying to buy scalp tickets like what we did.
Again, make a little weekend out of it.
Yeah, and so I think you're introducing a whole new generation now to a new shared music experience, and that's where I think Bowie was sort of kind of going to, which is that big shared experience is going to be what drives a lot of the new bands and new artists. Yeah.
Okay, I do have to correct the record because I know my father and mother listened to this podcast and I misunderstood your question. So we were an anomaly. My father's a big rock and roll guy. So I saw Paul McCartney, Little Richard, Ringo Starr and the All-Star Band, Richie Havens. Those were all my first concerts.
So, and that's
my first concert with my friends was 14.
Okay. So if I were to correct the record on my end, it would be like, I don't know if the Wolf Tones at Gaelic Park when I was 9 with my parents counts.
Yes. But I guess Pearl Jam is my, is my Paul McCartney. So he did take me to those, and we're still doing it. We saw Foo Fighters in Fenway Park this summer with my father and my brother, and I'm definitely more of a Foo Fighters fan than both of them, but it's that shared experience. And again, made a weekend out of it in Boston, went out for a nice day, dinner, go to the show. Yeah. It's good. Where do you see kind of things headed in the music industry? let's wrap up there, because I do think some of this is built up from COVID, as we've talked about. Some of this is big stars, a little bit of anomalies, but I don't think live shows go away. I think we still see this.
Yeah, I think it's the multi-level experience. And I say this as a fan that really enjoys that part of it, right? Which is the being able to click and send. Like I'm probably like you. I'm on like 4 or 5 text chains where with certain friends I'm sharing songs that I heard, like, oh, I know my friend would love this song. And then, or it's like, hey, am I crazy or is this the greatest song ever? And I'll send it to my brother, and we'll send it to our mutual friend, Alan. And we'll sort of have a sort of shared back and forth about what other bands and what other songs like that would people like. So I think that part of it's really big. I think, again, you and I talk probably once a week about like what shows are upcoming that we're going to be looking for. So I think that experience too. But one of the things, and this is kind of brings us back to the Oasis news, which is also driving a lot of different conversations about the music industry and how it makes its money, is how that experience in the secondary market is experienced. And by that, I mean, I know I would pay money to watch Oasis play at Croke Park.
Yeah.
On my television, on my stream, on my phone. Like, I would actually pay money that. I know I'm not going to be able to go over to Wembley. I'm not going to be able to go to Ireland to see one of these shows. But that experience would be pretty cool to witness live versus having to sort of hear about it through social media. So, like, is there going to be a pay-per-view or a streamed version of these the concert experience that then becomes the new?
So this has been my whole wrap on. I'm shocked the metaverse didn't work more than it did, because there were a few concerts, but they were, modern day pop stars kind of thing. But I would strap on a headset to sit front row. Oasis,
or I would pay one of those
couple $100 to still do it. Yeah.
And you see these bars where the ones where right now they're showing like, college football games and soccer games where it's almost kind of what do they call it? The sphere effect.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, imagine, like, what would you pay? I would pay top dollar. I would pay the same almost
as I pay for a ticket to be there. Yeah. And I'm sitting on my couch. Yeah.
Right.
But I'm sitting like I'm in the front row. This was where I think it'll come back.
A, because we have a little bit more disposable income, and B, because we're older, and like, it's like, hey, I want to see Oasis, but I need comfy seats.
And I don't want to go to bed at midnight.
I want to be able to keep I want to be able to not have to do 2 hours of driving from Baltimore to do it, so I think I'm interested. I'm surprised that they haven't done that. I remember and I think the anecdote I told you on this was, I remember when Holyfield fought George Foreman when I was in college, and we scrapped together whatever it was for the pay-per-view, $75, which was a ton of money back then.
Yeah.
And we must have had 125 people in this little cramped apartment off campus watching that fight, like literally sitting up on boxes on top of furniture on top of, and there were probably 100 people in there who all scrapped together the 70. And then I think we charged $5 $5 at the door
for a red solo cup.
For a red solo cup.
Yeah, exactly.
But like that was great. I remember every single punch of that fight.
Yeah. And again, going back to nostalgia, I can't believe I'm going to admit this, but can't wait for Tyson versus Jake Paul. And it's partly because my kids watch Jake Paul and like think he's, I
didn't know that was
some legend. And I'm like, I don't care if Mike Tyson's 60. Like, this guy has no idea who the Mike Tyson I saw when I was growing up is. And if he's got half of that, it's going to be quite.
By the way, should we take the over-under on how many Oasis shows there will actually be before they?
Well, I think this is, and
how many did they announce? They've announced 8?
They've announced, 8, because I think, 6 of them are in the U.S. They're coming. Those are going on sale soon. But I was going to end on this point, It's simple math, but the bands who have stuck together have really made bank off of this stuff. Pearl Jam has such a following year after year. They can do it. They've been doing it for 35 years.
Yeah.
Jane's Addiction coming back, and they'll get their payday, but then it falls apart. Oasis. Yeah. We'll see how long it lasts.
I will say about Pearl Jam, to their credit, I know that they are making bank, and I know that it is a lucrative, but they have put in how many years? 34 years, right?
This is 34 next year. Yeah,
35. Yeah, because that's why he's wearing the baby jersey at 34. But to their credit, they made every single effort to make that Baltimore show the best show you ever saw. They put in the work.
Saw, yeah.
And you could tell they loved it. They did not leave the fans out. This was not a payday. This is them, I think, realizing how much they missed during COVID, right?
Yeah.
And then also just how much they love this and how far they've come. It really is a celebration of the music. It's a celebration of the show. And that was a fantastic show because they put in the work. So I know we're talking about the economics of this. And that's what drives a lot of, whether or not we have these opportunities to see the bands we all love. And the music is most important. But they put on a great show, and
it's brand loyalty and consistency, right?
Yeah.
And if you shell out a few $100 and watch the lead singer punch the guitarist halfway through and lose your ticket, you're going to suffer some fans.
The tickets are going to cost a lot more for Oasis on the first 5 shows because I don't necessarily think they're going to make it past 6.
Yeah, that's right.
Those two genuinely hate each other.
Yes. And that's hard from an economic standpoint.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, let's leave it there. We can probably go on all day, but this was a fun one. Kevin, thanks for joining.
Thanks for going Penta Pop. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Love it. And to all our listeners, hope you enjoyed this one. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and follow us on X @PentaGRP and on LinkedIn @PentaGroup. I'm your host, Bryan. As always, thanks for listening to What's at Stake.